Welcome back. Before we resume the world this week, a sample of the stories we're following for you. Wreckage recovered from the EgyptAir flight that disappeared en route from Paris to Cairo. This amid renewed scrutiny over security. Israel's defense minister quits Moshe Ya'alon, accusing extremists, as he put it, of taking over the country. He's poised to be replaced by the far-right's Avigdor Lieberman. Advocates for the missing Chibok girls question the Nigerian military's claim that a second girl rescued was in fact one of those abducted by Boko Haram. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's The World This Week. We're in the company of Aaron Zaleski of the Daily Beast. Welcome back as well to Julia Wano of Internet Without Borders, Venezuelan photojournalist Sarah Suarez, and we're also with Judah Grunstein of World Politics Review. Last year, when a Russian charter jet filled with tourists was blown out of the sky after takeoff from the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, it took months for authorities in Cairo to acknowledge that it was indeed a bomb that did it. This Thursday, though, before EgyptAir Flight 804 from Paris had even been found, or wreckage from it had even been found, Cairo was already calling it terrorism.
The situation may point, and I say may because I don't want to go to speculations and I don't want to go to assumptions like others, but if you analyze the situation properly, the possibility of having a different action or having a terror attack is higher than the possibility of having a technical. So that's why we want to wait for facts, we want to wait for proper investigation, and then make our own statement.
And he's been proven right by facts, Aaron Zaleski, it seems, with plane seats, body parts, passengers' effects being found in an area north of Alexandria in the Mediterranean Sea. How do you explain this pivot by the Egyptian authorities when it comes to saying right away it was terrorism?
Well, I think almost right away, I think everyone was thinking that it possibly could. After, even when the slightest amounts of information were coming in, it did seem, it was an accident, it was a bit unprecedented. Usually, if it's a technical fault, it typically happens fairly early into a flight. The fact that the aircraft had been in the air for a while, that it was not very far from its destination, and that something happened so suddenly that no one in the cockpit was able to sound the alarm, send a distress signal, and then as more information has been coming out that the plane suddenly lost altitude, and then it did some movement to the left and then to the right, and then it dropped further, and then it just disappeared off the radar. That doesn't typically happen, barring a sudden and very catastrophic event. And again, we're not really going to know until all the evidence comes in, but that right there points to a bomb of some sort.
What was interesting in the coverage, Judah Grunstein, was I had the impression here people were criticizing the Egyptians for jumping to conclusions.
Well, I mean, what was interesting from the clip we watched was, excuse me, he says, I don't want to speculate, but now I'm going to speculate. Anytime you're saying may, you're speculating. I would be really cautious about even the assumption. Again, these are gory details. So when a plane crashes from a high altitude, the impact, especially over water, is enormous, and can result in fragmentation of the aircraft and other things. So we don't know anything right now. We really don't. It could be someone. It could be a fight in the cockpit between that had nothing to do with terrorism. It could be a distraught passenger for other reasons. We recently had a case where a flight from Egypt was hijacked by a man who hijacked it, had it land in Cyprus, and it turned out he was distraught because of his family situation. So again, I think it's very obvious that in the current climate, or it's understandable in the current climate, it's weighing on everyone's minds. The immediate first thought is this a terrorist attack? If a building blows up in a city now, we think, is it a bomb? When statistically it's more likely to be a gas explosion. So it's understandable. At the same time, I think it's important to say we really don't know anything, and we won't until the black boxes are found or some other kind of evidence that allows the experts to say, okay, there was some sort of explosion or what have you. This isn't normal.
Julia Wono, this is putting the spotlight on on Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, because that's where the plane took off from. Authorities have been questioning any ground staff that may have been in contact with the plane, which is perhaps normal procedure. But it's also throwing the spotlight on the fact that since the Charlie Hebdo attacks of January 2015, more than 600 people have had their clearance to the runway scrapped. 85 of those, according to authorities, could be, or at least are suspected of being radicalized. And this is an issue that's a bit prickly to handle in this country. How radicalized are some of the ground staff at Paris's airport? The same question has been put about transit workers after one of the Paris attackers in November was found to have been a former bus driver.
Of course, if the EgyptAir crash were terror attack, although we don't know yet, it would certainly, draw the light on exactly what you were saying. What are the procedures to identify the radicalized one? And more broadly, as the state of emergency has been extended once again, I think yesterday, it probably questions the efficiency of the fight against terror as it looks now in France. Roissy is said to be one of the most secured airports with the most, trustful personnel. So obviously, it will be a huge backlash for the government and for its argument for more security, for more anti-radicalization techniques. Well, actually, we don't know whether it works. If the EgyptAir is a crash, it will be a serious backlash against the government.
Sorry, Suarez?
Well, I think, as Julia was saying, the most responsible way to handle this is to say that until the time we have all the evidence and the information, we can't get conclusions, and to respect the family of the people who died in that plane, and also to don't create a situation of panic. It's very difficult to securize the airports today when you see all the people who work there and the subcontracts that they give to other people, and then again and again, is a multiple levels of security that at the end of the road, I'm sure there's people who doesn't even get verified identity or anything. So today is very difficult to control all that, and that, of course, that will be a terrible hit to the government if that was the case. But I think the most important is to wait really the results of the investigations.
I mean, at the same time, just one last word. There's no such thing as 100% securitization against terrorism. There's always either a weak link, or even in a perfectly developed designed system, there's human error. There are people who just don't fail on the job. It's just something that can't be 100% secured against.
More than 2 years on, the first liberation of one of those Chibok schoolgirls, Amina Ali, Darsha, and Keki, among the 219 abducted by Boko Haram in northeast Nigeria. She's now 19. She and her baby, born in captivity, greeted by the president.
The continuation of Amina's education, so abruptly disrupted, will definitely be a priority of the federal government. Amina must be able to go back to school.
Amina must be able to go back to school. Julia Wono, your reaction when you heard this news?
Well, of course, very happy. We've been following the issue of the Chibok girls. I remember a debate that you organized when it happened, and we were all very shocked. And of course, although there are still so many of them being still abducted, and probably some of them used now as human bombs in Cameroon, in Niger, in neighboring countries, it's always a rejoice to have one of these girls back home. And also as a Cameroonian, it was very, there is a debate in Cameroon on the fact that the president barely reacts to, terror attacks and to people being rescued. Whereas here we have the Nigerian president, the president of the Cameroon's neighboring country, welcoming a hostage with all the Republican fast and. Well, it's interesting to observe as a Cameroonian, definitely. But again, it should not hide the fact that
you're suggesting that President Biya doesn't do enough to recognize.
No, I'm just saying there is a debate on the fact that he probably does not react enough. But obviously, it should not make us forget that the fight against Boko Haram is far from being won. Although there are several battles who have been won, but we still. There are still so many issues to deal with, military and social as well. So.
Sorry, Suarez?
I can't avoid to be shocked a little bit by this image, and as I am shocked when any president receives hostages, I think it's a very, it's a time of emotions. It's a time where the victim is so fragile. This young lady with her baby in her arms, and we make a whole show about it. I know is a way to send a message, etc., but. For me, it's really something that shouldn't happen immediately when this kind of situations comes up.
Aaron Zaleski?
I mean, obviously, it's a good news that she's free.
But do you agree with Sarai that they shouldn't be paraded in front of the cameras? Or it's good to show the president welcoming her and her baby born in captivity?
I mean, it's sort of a delicate subject because I've read in the press that a lot of times these young women who've been seized by Boko Haram are shunned by their communities when they try to return. So a public display of welcoming her, I think in that sense, is a positive thing. On the other hand, yes, you don't want to exploit someone. You know, obviously, this woman has been traumatized. But it's still, on the other hand, I don't think that it's a bad thing to publicly welcome her.
Yes. Also, probably there is a societal aspect to it because we're talking about Nigeria, a 150 million citizens country that has been expecting these ladies for so many years. I mean, the Bring Back Our Girls campaign started in Nigeria with Nigerian citizens, civil society. So it's a sort of. I interpret it as a sort of welcoming ceremony, although, of course, it's probably traumatizing for the young lady. And
there's either 218 or 217 still in captivity, according to who you believe, because a second girl, one organization saying she's been free, but she's not one of the Chibok girls.
Right.
Plus, there's rivalries over whether or not it was the military or vigilante groups that actually freed Amina. A lot of questions still surrounding this liberation.
Well, yeah, and all of these are political questions, essentially. And I think Aaron does make a good point that societally and culturally, there is something important about showing a public demonstration that this young woman, when she was kidnapped, a girl, is going to be welcomed back. At the same time, I think in terms of the psychological fragility that she must be going through after her experience, she looks almost like she's shell-shocked in front of the cameras. It's very unsettling to watch. And then I don't think, for instance, that Buhari's first concern here is for her well-being as she makes the transition back into her new life. It could very well be. At the same time, Nigeria right now is being rocked economically by the fall in oil prices, huge corruption scandals, a budget that is putting them further into debt, an economy that's been racked. And the fight against Boko Haram, while there has been some good news, it's been very brutal. The Nigerian military has been criticized for very heavy-handed tactics and human rights abuses. So even within the good news, there's a lot of bad news, and it's not all good news. So I think that there's a very significant political element to this fact, to parading this very significant success on a human level, which remains very limited compared to all of the problems that are left to be faced, and even the amount of these girls and young women that are still in captivity and others like them.
All right, in Venezuela, we're going to turn our attentions now there. There are shortages, rationing, hyperinflation, a state of emergency, a recall referendum wanted by the opposition, resisted by the government, and now 2 days of war games are planned. 500,000 soldiers and militia members taking part in the exercise. Those aren't the war games, those are the demonstrations. Against internal strife or foreign aggression. At this point in time, Sarah Suarez, where's the standoff going? 500,000 people taking part in these war games this weekend. At the end of the day, Nicholas Maduro, he's got the final say, even though there is a parliament that is favorable to the opposition.
I think there is something important going on right now. Things are kind of moving. Since the last year and a half, we've been waiting to something to happen, and right now things are starting to move. We're getting some support from former presidents, and the international community is pronouncing. I have always refused to say that Venezuela was a dictatorship. Today, I would say it's not a democracy anymore in the terms we know it. I would not say it's a dictatorship. I think dictatorship, the concept we have, is an old concept. And today, what's going on in Venezuela, they're using democratic tools to validate an authoritarian military government. So today, I would not say it's a democracy anymore, and the president is getting all the control. That show he's going to hell in Venezuela is with the militaries and showing all the arms they have. It means we have the arms and we're going to use them if you don't stop. So is a threat.
Is it bluster or is he serious? And
No,
can he hang on?
I think he's serious. Until when they can go, I don't know. The problem is that Venezuela today is a military government. It has been for the last 17 years. But today is more than ever. And the opposition...
I mean, you say it's a military government, but Hugo Chavez was nearly toppled by a coup early on.
Well,
in 2002.
he gave one himself, and then he got another one, of course. There was fractions in the military scene, and one fraction got in the opposition, and that's when that happened. But today the problem is the opposition is alone on the democratic road to try to get the referendum on, and all the militaries are on the side of the government. To have a coup today, you need the militaries, and I don't think the militaries are ready to let go the power they have now with Maduro's government. They have really got into all the institutions, and they have all the power they could have today. They're not ready to leave that.
All right, you mentioned outside players weighing in on this crisis. Uruguay's former president, Jose Mujica, no friend of what Latin American leftists would call Yankee imperialism, he said Maduro and friends were, quote, mad as a goat for attacking the Uruguayan Luis Almagro, who heads the Organization of American States, rather than sit down for talks. Reaction from Caracas was swift.
Oh, I'm mad as a goat. Yes, madly in love with Venezuela, with the Bolivarian Revolution, Chavez and his example. Yes, I'm mad as a goat. It's true.
Zaleski, your reaction.
Oh, God. I mean, again, I think that the defending himself or, embracing or repurposing the label as mad as a goat is sort of the same in these military exercises. I think it's just an excuse. I think it's just a distraction away from the real issues. I mean, basically, we're looking at a country that's descending very quickly into becoming a failed state, first economically, and the social fabric is also unraveling. I read something in the press this week about a mob beating to death a man for having stolen $5 from someone. And apparently these vigilante killings are becoming more and more common. And I think instead of, if he really loves Venezuela, as he's saying, the government needs to take steps to improve the situation. And one of the main issues is that the government controlled a national currency.
Judo Gonzalez?
Yeah, it's for the last 6 months or more, there's been this sense that Venezuela is on the brink, that it's really on the edge of a precipice. Economically, the currency is a mess, the economy is a mess. There's a shortage of food, of just basic goods, including very notoriously toilet paper
and beer.
And there are ways in which you can kind of chuckle about no toilet paper in a country, but in terms of the human suffering that's going on, there's also a huge amount of insecurity in terms of violence and murders. The homicide rate has skyrocketed, and what the problem is twofold. One is that Chavez was really the originator of not necessarily seizing power as a dictator, but just messing with the mechanisms of democracy so that he had all the power, creating referendums for lengthening terms, constitutional amendments, creating almost like parallel sets of governments so that almost for this very scenario where if the parliament is if the opposition wins parliamentary elections, there are local militias and local councils in the neighborhoods that he transfers power, that he can transfer power to. So basically, what you have is that you have two people, two groups, the two sides can both legalistically claim that they're abiding by the democratic principles as they're laid out in the Constitution. The one question I have though is that Chavez really did create a wake behind him, both in Venezuela and also in the region. He had a lot of emulators and was very popular in the region. The tide has completely turned against that, whether in Argentina, Brazil, which was a different model, but the impeachment of Rousseff has weakened the left. And Maduro just does not have any of the political skills that Chavez had, who, like him or hate him, he was a commanding, charismatic figure who dominated the country. Maduro is almost like a joke. And my question is whether the military obviously wants to hold on to power, whether they want to hold on to power with Maduro, I'm not convinced of. I wonder if he might be shunted aside as hopefully as a way to resolve the standoff, but maybe as a way to escalate it.
Because I think, remember, when Chavez was in power, Chavez was the chief of everything. When he left, when he died, it was a bicephal, two brains in the government. Mm-hmm. You had Cabello.
Yeah.
You had Cabello, Diosdado Cabello, who was hitting all the military side, and Maduro. So they were working together, even if Maduro was the front of the government. And today, the militaries had got an amount of power that we have never seen in the country, and that's amazing. And that's one of the reasons I think for what you were asking. I mean, they have the power, and they're not staying there because they're agree with Maduro or his politics. They stay in there because they want to keep the carrot they got.
All right, let's hope for Venezuela's president that it's not an omen. Actor and director Sean Penn, savaged by the press at the Cannes Film Festival, not for his outspoken support for Maduro's predecessor Hugo Chavez, but for his humanitarian romance, The Last Face, set mostly in Liberia, dubbed by Le Figaro and others as the worst film in competition this year at the Cannes Film Festival. For more on this, let's turn to Emma James. Come on in, Emma. It's time for our Media Watch segment.
Hi there. Yes, it has been widely panned, panned in Cannes, which is rather a delightful headline that I'm sure we'll be seeing in a few places. But basically, The Last Face, or The Last Farce, as I think it may become known, has really been roundly criticised by absolutely everyone. It's a film about a romance between aid workers in Liberia. And if you take a look at this photo call here, you kind of get a bit of a hint what the issue, or at least one of the issues, might be. Admittedly, tucked away on the end here, there is one black man in that photo from the photo call. But that is one of the key issues that people are pointing out. The Last Face is definitely the worst film I've seen in Cannes, pompous, pointless, and I think a little bit racist. To go on with this one, unforgivably dreadful, well-intended refugee drama let down in every area, staggeringly bad. This gives a better idea what the problem is. Pompous romance with human suffering as wallpaper, pleads empathy with Africa, zero real black characters. So those are the kind of reactions that it got. Taking a look at some of the reviews, this one from The Guardian, written by Benjamin Lee, he gives it just 1 star. African conflict is aphrodisiac for white people in Sean Penn's crass romance. That's about as bad as it can get when it comes to film reviews. He says that Charlize Theron and Javier Bardem, two great stars, have given career worst performances in this film. So really, nobody seems to have a good word to say about it.
All I guess Lisa Nesselson was more indulgent. She said could be better once it's gone back to the editing room a little.
Yes, but will it? That's the thing, because if we take a look, Variety have spoken to Sean Penn, and he says, I stand by the film as it is, and everyone is going to be entitled to their response. He added, I've finished the film, so it's not a discussion I'd be of value to. So clearly no intention on his part to make any changes to it whatsoever, even if he could. But yes, if we take a look at some of the other Twitter responses, they're all pretty bad.
Oh dear.
I joined in the booing for the first time today for The Last Face. It was so bad that I laughed out loud at times. Now, when you think what the subject matter is, it's got to be bad if it's got you laughing. And finally, Benjamin Lee, again, the Guardian reviewer, The Last Face is Beasts of No Nation, rewritten for white people by Nicholas Sparks. He's a romance writer, wrote The Notebook. No wonder Penn and Theron broke up, because they were actually a couple at the start of this project. They are no more. Now, who knows if The Last Face is to blame?
All right. Julie Ono, I don't know if The Last Face is the film that you'll be rushing to see when they open in movie theaters. Remember, all the movies are in competition. They first get screened at Cannes before they're premiered. Is there a film in this year's crop that's caught your eye?
Yes, I would love to watch Brazilian movie Aquarius. Mainly, I must admit, because of the social and political context that the country is going through, and also because culture is at the center of a discussion and debate now in the country. And I think it will be interesting to see, how to support Brazilian culture.
Life caught up with art at the Cannes Film Festival, Suarez, with the announcement that the new government in Brazil was doing away with the culture ministry as such, or the post of culture minister. Is that the film that you'll be going to see?
No, that's not the film. The film I would like to see is Loving. I found that film, I just saw the trailer, but it's from a sensitive point of view, it's a very touching, and the way it's done is a very artistic way of talking about a very rough subject, racist, and in the old times. And the worst thing is that today we keep doing again and again and again the same mistakes that were supposed to be in the past. So those kind of films, I love to see them again.
Aaron Zaleski?
I want to see Park Chan-wook's latest, The Handmaiden. It's actually based on a British novel set in Victorian England, but he's repurposed it to be set in 1930s Korea. And just judging from the trailer, the visuals look very stunning. It's an interesting time period, and it's also quite a departure for him. He's usually known for these brutal revenge stories. And so I'm interested in seeing that one.
I hate the Cannes Film Festival. I find it to be a self-absorbed ego trip for narcissists. It's an old club where the same directors are invited year after year to show their films, whether they're good or not. They're almost 99% men. And this year, to even make it easier to not pay attention to it, you don't even see the cast and the crew anymore, or the cast of the movies, because all the top models from all over the world have invaded La Croisette, and all you see is the pictures of these models who have nothing to do with the movies. So I'm over the Cannes Film
One
Festival.
man who won't be going to the movies. Judith Runstein, I want to thank you. I want to thank Julia Wono. I want to thank as well Suarez, Aaron Zaleski. I want to thank you, Emma James. Thank you for joining us here for The World This Week.